There was a physical condition that occurred. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the challenges you had.
It really realigned what's important. Going through a near-death experience, I mean, Dr. John had a lyric in one of his songs, and he would blurt out, "Life is a near-death experience." That I had achieved the things that I had wanted to achieve, like since I was a kid riding around on my dad's lawnmower, like mowing the grass.
We want to thank the co-producer of the record, Jeff "JEDI Master Jones.
We got a man on today, a man I have a deep respect for, who has an encyclopedic knowledge of engineering and sonics and recording, Jeff Jones.
And a whole lot of other stuff, Clyde.
Well, his nickname is the JEDI Master.
He's very, very special. Just amazing, the work that this guy has done. But also, there's something very, very much more. There's a spiritual context that I hope we're able to get into after we talk about his magnificent gifts as an engineer.
Don't forget, he actually recorded Mac Rebennack, otherwise known as Dr. John, Alicia Keys.
Yeah.
He had worked for a long time with Bill Cosby, etc.
And Marsalis brothers, right?
Well, he worked directly for Wynton Marsalis at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and he'll tell you about that story and how it came into existence.
And Clyde, he was also part of the award-winning public television holiday program that Flushing Town Hall and us produced, Noel, A Night of Everlasting Love. He was the man that put it all together from a technical standpoint.
How did you acquire the name JEDI Master, and why?
We couldn't even begin to ask you the number of people or name those people that you've worked with, but how about if we asked you your favorites?
I mean, for me, it was a kicker to record Wynton and Eric Clapton live at Lincoln Center.
Oh. Jeff, one of the projects you were able to do with Clyde and I was at Town Hall in Flushing, very special event. That captured the community's eye and ear and won public television's Best Holiday Programming Award back in 2010, and that was Noel, A Night of Everlasting Love. And it was quite the challenge for somebody to take charge of the engineering of that program with a 21-piece symphony orchestra and a live audience. Jeff, so you started all this work. You were doing all this work with all these top artists and all of these groups, and then something happened to you physically, right? There was a physical condition that occurred. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the challenges you had, and then how you were able to, or what occurred that got you in touch with your spiritual side. And then I'd like to hear you talk about how that might have either helped or hindered you working with music after that.
I'm a cancer survivor, and I, survived non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and going through chemotherapy and such. And this was before doing the stuff with Wynton. What I was trying to do was just make a reputation for myself in a big town. I'd come from a small town, and I just said, I'm just going to do a lot of good work for a lot of good people. And I just started getting really tired all of a sudden. I didn't have insurance. And I kind of bumped around to different doctors and trying to figure out what was going on with me. And then I ended up meeting a doctor who was still my doctor today. He took an x-ray of me and, showed up a tumor the size of a grapefruit. It was literally the day before Christmas Eve. And
can you give me an idea what year that was?
Oh, I'd have to look at my brain doesn't operate that way.
Oh, all right. But, that's all right.
It just doesn't operate that way.
Yeah.
You tell me I can tell you how many instruments were on a recording from 20 years ago, but I can't. I went in the hospital and going through a near-death experience. I mean, Dr. John had a lyric in one of his songs, and he would blurt out, "Life is a near-death experience."
Life is a near-death experience. Hell is right here on this great big earth.
It really realigned what's important for me.
Right.
Getting in touch with one's own mortality. I studied some Deepak Chopra. I started eating better, and I got better, thank God. That put me in touch with what I really wanted to do, like before I croak, let's say. There's a second rebirth, which is when I turned 60, that was in some ways more important because, that I had achieved the things that I had wanted to achieve, like since I was a kid riding around on my dad's lawnmower, like mowing the grass. And I had gotten the Grammy and gotten the things that I thought would be that would be it,
Dr. John and the lower 911, which is Herman Ernest III, David Berard, and John Fohl are actually on the road playing tonight, so I'm accepting this on their behalf. We want to thank the co-producer of the record, Jeff "JEDI Master Jones, the great musicians and technicians that worked on the record, the management, Impact Artist Management, William Morris, and of course 429 Records.
Once a person does the things that they set out their whole life to do, there's a realignment. And it's similar to when I went through cancer and chemo. I mean, luckily, I knew enough. I was sober. I had been sober for a number of years, and I knew enough to show up, to keep coming, and keep getting the treatment. And this, I'm thinking back now. What it is I say positive affirmations on a daily basis, and I talk about I give thanks for the things that I feel are given, like the body that I'm in or the talent that I've been given, and then I expand that into asking for health, wealth, and prosperity in my mind and my body, in my personal relationships, in my security, my family, my communication, and stuff. And when I was struck with cancer, I made a decision that prayer, that I was actually getting those things, and that it was coming in the form of cancer. And so I made a decision that I was in the process, instead of for a while I was laying in the hospital bed, looking out the window going, why me? And then that turned into, I'm in the process of getting healthy. I'm in the process of getting better. And Deepak Chopra was talking about stuff like imagining in your mind, going after the cancer cells, polar bears going after, something or something like that. And, when they put a needle in your arm and they're giving you chemo, it actually hurts. And it's like it's poison. And your natural response is to say no, 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 and to push it away. And I thought, what if I welcome it into my body? What if I suck it in? It hurts, but it's helping me. That's part of what happened for me. I'd done some personal growth workshops where I was examining fear and we run away. But what if fear is our friend?
Now, there are some people on this planet that are able to recognize that right away, that fear is not something that slows them down or makes them stop, but actually motivates them, and they use that energy in a positive way. Some of us need to experience that and fight through that a little bit. I too am a cancer survivor, as you know. I had bone cancer, and I thankfully was very, very lucky. And I understand exactly what you're talking about when it comes to you start to appreciate and understand things that you really might have taken for granted, or that you never took the time to realize were important.
Right.
I go for a walk and I look at the ground because I'm thinking. Some people think that I'm like looking down like I'm depressed or something like that, but I'm thinking and I'm praying. I'm really enjoying the squirrels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying just like a bird, or the sunlight reflecting off of some water.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm giving thanks for those small things, which are a part of life. And there's a lot of complex stuff. There's a lot of, I believe miracles are around us always. And it's our own attitude that keeps us from picking up on them when we have not a great attitude. And so, it's the same as, I just came up with some real fear. I'm working on getting a web presence. I'm working on expanding my career as a producer and as a director. And I'm scared. I'm scared. Why? I'm scared because I'm going after something that I really, really want, that I've worked hard for, that I've laid the groundwork for, but it's something that I have yet to achieve, let's say. And understanding that fear is my friend and that the fear of not having a place to live is part of what has me pay my rent or my mortgage,
Right.
And, that helps. So, it's about turning it around. It's about looking at what's going on and saying, I'm asking for help with this. And it's also about taking courage in what we're doing in life, taking the high road, recognizing that we have a higher and lower self, recognizing that the lower self and higher self together are a part of our growth, but making a decision to be in the process of looking upward.
Yep.
Toward the higher goal, the higher place, the higher plane, the higher way of being, the better way of communicating, the better art. As we step up the ladder, as everything in life which acts as a catalyst for our growth, which is absolutely everything, every interaction, every thing that vexes us, everything, to look at that as a gift and to accept that things are going to continue to change and that itself is a gift. That's where I live. That's my wheelhouse. That's where I try to stay.
Awareness.
That's where, this is, I'm in the gravy train. I'm in the gravy train right now. I survived cancer,
That's right.
drug addiction, alcoholism. I got real friends. I got you. I got Clyde. Real friends I could call up and say, I got this problem that will talk with me about it and help me gain some insight.
Well, you have some really beautiful revelations that have come to you. you know,
Yeah.
and maybe that's part of the whole mystique of being a Jedi Master, you know?
I hope so. I think it is.
Yes,
Well,
it is.
the amazing thing to me is that we learn over and over that it's about balance in life. And sometimes when we're at our peak with our gifts and our material things, we lose sight of some of the spiritual things, some of the things that really are important. And then an event happens in our life, and bingo, that stuff becomes important again. And all the stuff that we've accomplished suddenly becomes much more special when you're able to join that spiritual, when you recognize that it was a gift given.
Mm-hmm.
That boy, I don't even know how to, I turned it into, I'm going to educate young people. That was my thing. I turned into, okay, you know what? Less performing, less producing, less directing. Let's get into education. Let's see if we can make a difference in that area. And I think Clyde and I both have made a difference in that area with the Josephine Foundation. I think we're a very special thing. Jeff, I got to ask you this question because there are going to be kids that are going to drive me, the thousands of kids that we deal with are
Okay.
going to ask me, why didn't you ask him this question if you had him on there? And I'm going to do this because I think you have great insight. If a young man or girl comes to you and says, I love what you do and I want to get started doing this stuff, what kind of career advice can you give?
I mean, all I've ever done is follow my heart. And it was, you know, my dad is a corporate animal, and he said to me, you know, but where's the monetary value of what you're doing? And I did this record with Dan Hartman. I went to the store, I bought it, left the price tag on it, and I gave it to my dad. And I said, here's what I do. And here's something that was bought at a store. That was important to me specifically. Seek out the people that you admire. You'd be amazed at how human they are and how accessible they are if they see a real desire in someone. And learn everything you can about what it is. I mean, I kept like making recordings and saying, why does that sound like a bird chirping from a phone pole 2 miles away, but Pink Floyd sounds like God himself reached down and played one note on a piano and it rang forever into the heavens. How do they do that? And I studied that. I kept studying and studying. When I went to record the symphony orchestra in Nebraska, I listened to John Williams. I listened to Barbra Streisand, Frank Sinatra. I listened to Leonard Bernstein. I was searching for like what, you know, how do they do this? I found a DVD of Leonard Bernstein's recording sessions of West Side Story.
Okay. The only comment I have is, strangely enough, you wouldn't think I'd have any comment for strings in a piece like this, but I do. That the articulation, when you have aren't there places where I don't hear that articulation from you the way I hear it from grass people? And it's important, otherwise I wouldn't have written string parts for this. It's not just a jazz band, in other words.
That's true. Whenever it gets really jazzy, the strings just tend to give up. And
in spite of the fact that we have this great genius for his trumpet playing, we still need the son as an octave higher, and so on. Okay, so from the top.
here we go. Dance at the Gym. The intro, blues take 55.
How did they mic the stuff? What mics did they use? What were they? How did they do that? Just keep studying this stuff. What's different now, I think, from when I was growing up is there's a lot of stuff available online. You can go to YouTube and look at stuff. You can find 25 different record producers explaining how they mic drums, explaining how they, what they look for in an artist, it depends upon how you're looking at it. What are you looking to be? A producer? Are you a musician? Are you looking to produce your own music? Do you want to go into television? Are you an artist? Do you want to direct artists? But whatever it is, follow your heart and keep studying any which way you can. I'm working with a young artist now. She practices in front of the mirror. She does all the rock moves, like with the guitar and all that stuff. But she practiced, and darn it, we worked on a video. She looked great, but she practiced that stuff. It didn't just happen.
Right.
Yeah, Clyde, you remember our dear friend Jimmy Heath?
Sure.
And all he kept saying was what? Practice, and more practice.
You know what I do for fun? The pandemic is tough on a lot of people. For me, I get to practice.
Mm-hmm.
I practice mixing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I work on projects. I spend extra time on stuff where people don't necessarily have a lot of money. I invest myself, and for me, I did a thing for a singer out of Copenhagen. It was a low-budget project. I got to play some music. I got to play some congas, some cowbell, some keyboards, and I filled out her material. And when I sent it to her, she was blown away. And that's a good feeling. And it's like, okay, so take this and run with it and see if you can come up with a budget, or see if this helps you, or do you need the version of it without the vocals so you could maybe be on, Danish television or whatever. And this stuff comes back. It comes back. I started as a teen editing talking books. I've done a bunch of different gigs. Music has always been my thing.
Right.
But if it's related to audio, or if I could learn something, I'm there. I'm still there.
Yeah, and I think everybody that is good at what they do is still learning.
Yeah.
And the minute they say they're not learning, they're not really the very best at what they do anyway. It's just, I don't think you'll ever hear anybody that's very good at what they do say that they're not learning every single day.
That's right.
It's a very important part of it. Jeff, one other thing, what's on the agenda? What projects? What would you like to go after? What's the Jedi Master going after now in the future?
Well,
the universe.
I've always invested in my studio. I've never really been like cash rich, but I've always had the gift of working with the best musicians in the world. And I work with them. I give to them. They're my friends. I'd like to work on some of my own music. I've been saying affirmations like money comes to me easily. I now have been saying Grammys and critical acclaim come to me easily. But the real secret, I was talking about this earlier today, I want to make records or make art that changes people's lives for the better.
Mm-hmm.
The message that's embodied in the art.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a few Aaron Copland pieces that no matter when you hear them, they just make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. They are inspiring. There's Aretha Franklin singing Respect, that no matter when it's on, no matter whether it's a transistor radio or a great big stereo, it brings forth an energy. those kinds of recordings, the way that music transcends through spirituality and resonates into everyone's souls. I've stood outside of a hut in Peru and heard Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders coming out and gone, wow.
Wow.
Culturally,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I wonder if people in this world really understand the power. Clyde and I talk about it all the time. In fact, Clyde's written a couple of articles for our newsletter, and I've written some articles about the power, the power that music has, the international healer, the uniter. Music has that wonderful quality, being able to do these things.
If you hold the pedal down on a piano and you hit a C major 7 chord, more than those C major 7 notes, the 5 notes, are ringing. There are all kinds of sympathetic strings that are ringing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, we exist in a limited frequency range. And we can only hear so high, we can only hear so low. And in my opinion, this is my theory, is that the center frequency of our waking state is in a non-harmonic sympathy with other planes of existence. And if we drop into meditation or prayer or right before we go to sleep, we are more in sympathy if we drop a little lower, you know? And music, when it's played, when you think about it, when there's sound that is music, it resonates into more than just the room, just as prayer does.
Right.
And so, you know, that's why it can touch people's souls, and that's why it can transverse cultural boundaries, and that masses of people can understand. They don't even understand the language, but they know they love it.
Yeah, yeah. So you know so in that respect, it bonds us, and it helps bond us to higher planes of existence, to our spiritual, you know, selves. Absolutely.
Within ourselves.
Well, my friend, I hope you know how much you mean to both of us. I think
I
you
love
do.
you too very much.
All right. And I sure do hope you enjoyed visiting with us. We can't thank you enough for sharing not just the amazing, everybody can just listen to the music and see what an amazing engineer you are, but your life as a person is an inspiration to an awful lot of people. And Clyde and I both believe strongly that when this pandemic ends, it's going to be the performing arts that bring people back to life again. And people like you are an inspiration for young people and for all of us to continue to do that kind of work. So my dear friend, I hope you will come and see us again. And I offer you all the peace and love, my brother, and health going forward. And I can't wait until we can be in a room and have dinner together.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
All right.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing, wonderful Jedi Master, Mr. Jeff Jones. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Thank you.
It's an honor.
Yes.
Clyde, Jeff obviously is everything anybody could ask for. But I think when he's so willing to talk openly about his life and the struggles and how he's conquered them and the wonderful balance in life he's achieved at this point, and how he's using that life of his to help other people. It's just quite amazing, huh?
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's a very special
He is an evolved spiritual person now.
That's for
I can
sure.
hear it in his tone and his reverence for life itself.
Yeah, it really is something special. Folks, again, a special thanks to our Jedi Master, Mr. Jeff Jones, our special guest tonight. We thank you for joining us. And folks, stay advised of all the events by following the Josephine Foundation on our Facebook page, on our new YouTube channel, where you can see all of our programming. special events from the past and present. Like us on our Instagram account. Again, a special thanks to the Jedi Master, Mr. Jeff Jones, on behalf of my co-host, Mr. Clyde Ballard, our producer, Mr. Gio Vitozzi, and myself. Peace, strength, and love until we see you next week on Odds and Ends, Life, Entertainment, Theater, and the Arts. Good night, everybody.
And stay bright.
Amen, brother.
Look just a little deeper. Don't suck up the art. Strip mine this whole earth. Save our planet. Whose master do you serve? Time for a change, and you know it is.